Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tommy the Techie, and as always, I'm happy to have you here with me. Okay, so if you found your way to this video as the link to my Medium article, thank you for stopping by. If you found this video just by being on my YouTube channel, thanks for coming. Okay, so described in my Medium article were the definitions, or at least a high-level view of these definitions for all of these components. All right? So we are going to build out this three-tier application that we have diagrammed in front of us. So I'm just going to go over really quick about how the flow of data is supposed to work for this. So inside our VPC, we have attached to our VPC, we have an internet gateway, which is coming down into a application load balancer. Well, it's coming into a public security group allowing for HTTP traffic from anywhere. It's hitting this load balancer, and it is then distributing its load to the EC2 instances in the autoscaling group that is spanning these two public subnets. You can see we also have a NAT gateway stationed or in this subnet to allow internet access to our private VPCs. We have a route table that is routing all outbound traffic back to the internet gateway to put it back out into the internet. On the next tier, the application tier, we have our data flowing into another security group that is this time allowing inbound traffic from the public security group. It's hitting yet another application load balancer, which is distributing its load amongst EC2 instances that are in this auto scaling group that are spanning these two subnets. You can see here on all of these EC2 instances, we have the SSM agent installed. So that is the AWS Systems Manager agent installed. Our final tier, we have a route table that is pointing all outbound traffic to the NAT gateway, which is then forwarding to the internet gateway. Our final tier, our data is flowing into a third security group, our second private one. And in here, in one of these subnets, you can see we have an RDS database deployed here. All right. And we are using multi-AZ in this diagram to use a RDS read replica in another subnet. This is only going to be in the diagram. When we build it out, we are not going to use multi-AZ when we build the database tier, just because it is not part of the free tier option. Okay, so that's basically it at a high level. That is how the flow of data is going to go. And let's look at the reason why we're doing this. Okay, so we are doing week 9, the week 9 project for Level Up in Tech. Oh, goodness. All right. So we're going to start at the foundational. Well, up here we got verification and deliverables. Make sure you can access the web page from the internet. From the web tier, verify you can ping the application tier from the web tier by running the ping command from an EC2 instance in the web tier. Send the diagram to the coaches. I will do that momentarily. Our foundational level of this project. It says see the use case, but to keep this video relatively short, we're just going to skip over reading that. Advice. Build one tier at a time. The best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Very good advice. Verify that you can do the foundational project before building out to the advanced and complex options. Okay, so this diagram is illustrating the advanced portion of the project. I have chosen this because this is what we are going to be doing together. Okay. So note, NAT gateways, elastic IPs, and elastic load balancers do have a small cost. Ensure you delete them after your project, and we will make sure that we do that. Okay, so a little description of what our tiers are going to be hosting. Okay, so the web tier. It's going to be comprised of 2 public subnets, just like we saw in the diagram, a minimum of 2 EC2 instances with an OS of your choice from the free tier, in an auto-scaling group, EC2 web server security group allowing inbound permissions from the internet, bootstrap static web page, or a custom AMI that already includes a static web page. Create a public route and associate the 2 public subnets. Okay. The application tier, again, we're going to have 2 private subnets this time. Minimum of 2 EC2 instances, again, of the OS free tier in an auto-scaling group. EC2 application server security group allowing inbound permissions from the web server security group, just like in our diagram. Associate with private route table. Note, this is not a true application tier as we do not have any provided code to run on the EC2 instances. So yes, we're just going to be having the instances there themselves. They're not going to be doing anything. And finally, the database tier. Use a free tier MySQL RDS database. The database security group should allow inbound traffic for MySQL from the application server security group. 2 private subnets. Associate with private route table. Note, no need to use multi-AZ, but be sure to document how you would add it. That's because it's not part of the free tier, like I had said. Remember that when diagramming this tier, you're only creating 1 RDS instance. Oh, goodness. Okay. Remember, when diagramming this tier, you are only creating 1 RDS instance in 1 subnet, even though you are creating 2 subnets. If you use multi-AZ or read replica, then and only then should you have a second instance. Make sure to label accordingly. Okay, and to reference our diagram again, we do have a read replica over here, and I used this dotted line to indicate that it is not going to be actually built out in our environment. It's just here on the diagram for instructional purposes. Okay, considerations. You will need to configure a public route table along with private route tables. Okay. You will need a NAT gateway in one of your public subnets to assure your instances in private subnets, to allow your instances in private subnets to update packages and patches. Make sure to include this in the private route table. In order to reach your EC2 instances in the private subnets, you will either need a bastion host in the public subnet or need to use SSM. You will need to do research into both to see which works better for your use case. Plan out your CIDRs before you create your VPC and subnets. Excellent advice. Okay, and after we finish, well, we are going to be including the advanced portion in our original build, just to, again, keep the length of this video down. So our environment is going to have application load balancers. These should be used for the web tier with the same security group considerations. Example, the Elastic load balancer should allow HTTP traffic from anywhere on the web server security group. And the web server security group should allow only traffic from the ALB. Don't forget to create target groups and enable health checks. Okay. And Complex is to do all of this in CloudFormation. We are not going to be doing that. We are going to be building all of this in the management console. Okay, so the advice to build 1 tier at a time, we are going to follow that, but before we even get to the tiers, we're going to go ahead and build out the VPC and the subnets just so we have our framework for our environment. Okay, so our VPC is going to be in US East 1, okay? And the availability zones we're going to be utilizing are US East 1A and US East 1B. Okay, let's get started here. So to get started, let's come over here to our VPC dashboard. We're going to create a VPC. We're going to do VPC only. We're going to call this Week 9 VPC. Okay, I'll put a dash in there as well. Okay, IPv4. The CIDR we're going to use is 10.10.0.0/16, CIDR 16. We're going to leave the tenancy default. Okay, let's create this VPC. And it just takes a moment here. As you can see, it's already available. Okay. So, in our VPC, we need to build some subnets. We need to build 6 subnets. So let's just go ahead and click on subnets. And I've got a few here already, but we don't have the ones we need. So VPC ID, we're going to do this week 9 VPC that we just created. Subnet 1. Okay, so the considerations in the project details said to plan out your CIDRs. I've already done so. So our first subnet is going to just be public web tier, we'll call it. Public web tier 1. Availability zone, let's go back to our document here. We want this to be in US East 1A. Okay, so availability zone, we will select US East 1A. The available CIDR block is just on our diagram. It's going to be 10.10.1.0/24. Okay, so we are going to add 5 more subnets to build out our environment. So let's just knock that out real quick. Public web tier. Oh, God. Public web tier 2. Availability zone, this time we're going to put it in US East 1B. 10.10.2.0/24 is going to be our CIDR block here. And you get the gist. We're just going to do the same thing for our private subnets now. Private app tier 1. US East 1A. 10.10.3.0/24. Okay. Private app tier 2. US East 1B. 10.10.4.04/24. Okay, so now we've got 2 more to do. We're going to do the database tier subnets. Private DB tier 1. US East 1A. 10.10.5.04/24. And finally, private DB tier 2. US East 1B. 10.10.6.04/24. Okay. And we are creating subnets. Come on, subnet 6. Okay, so that was pretty quick. You can see all of those are already created. Let's reference our diagram again. Okay, so we have our VPC built. We have our 6 subnets built, our 2 public and our 4 private. Right now our public subnets are just public in name only. We haven't opened them up to the internet, but we will. And the way we're going to do that is by attaching the internet gateway here. Okay, so let's go down to internet gateways. And we're going to create an internet gateway. It's going to be called Week 9 Internet Gateway. Create gateway. That's it. Nice and simple. Okay, it's asking us, do you want to attach it to a VPC? We absolutely do, so we are going to attach it to the Week 9 VPC. Attach Internet Gateway, and just like that, it's attached. Now, in order for any traffic to flow out of this Internet Gateway into the Internet, we are going to need to route traffic there. So let's go to our route tables. We'll start off with just the first one, with the public route table. So let's create it. Public web, oh no, let's just keep it, no, public web tier RT. Okay, just so we know what it is at a quick glance. VPC is going to be the week 9. Okay, create route table. So the first thing we're going to do is associate it with some subnets. So you click on subnet associations, edit subnet association. And here we have our 6 subnets in our VPC. This is going to be a public routing table, so we're going to put our 2 public web tier subnets on it. So save associations. Okay, so we've got our 2 subnets associated explicitly with public web tier route table. The routes, we have the default route that all route tables are going to have that just leads back into the VPC itself. That's fine. We're going to edit a route or add a route. So we're going to say that traffic bound for anywhere, the internet gateway, or it's going to go through the internet gateway. So traffic bound for the internet is going through our internet gateway. Save changes. Okay, so now any traffic in these 2 subnets that needs to go to the internet, our route table is going to push it through the internet gateway. Okay. Next up, let's do our public security group. Okay, so let's go click on security groups. Okay, we're going to create a security group. Week 9 web tier SG. This is going to allow HTTP traffic from 0.0.0.0.0/0. Okay. And we don't want, this is our VPC for the default VPC for the account right here. We don't want that. We're going to deselect it and select week 9 VPC. The inbound rules, we've got to put some of those. So we need to allow HTTP traffic from the internet from anywhere to this VPC, or not VPC, to this security group, because it is for our public web tier. All right. We're going to leave the outbound rules alone. We're just going to create security group now. Okay. Let's look at what we have so far. We've built our VPC. We've built our subnets, defining what availability zones are going to use. We have made a internet gateway. We have made a private route, public route table. We have made a public security group. Last thing in the web tier we need to add is the NAT gateway. So the NAT gateway is going to allow the EC2 instances in our private tier here, in our app tier, to send traffic out to the internet, because right now they don't have a path there. So we're going to point this route table eventually, when we make it, to the NAT gateway, which will in turn point it towards the internet gateway. So let's build a NAT gateway. We're going to create NAT gateway. Week 9 NAT gateway. The subnet, we're going to put it in web tier 1. Going to keep it public. Okay, so elastic IP allocation. We need to have an elastic IP address to attach to this NAT gateway. So we're just going to allocate one because I didn't have one handy. create NAT gateway. Okay. Simple enough. It looks like we've got all of our prereqs made for this, except for our load balancer and the actual EC2 instances themselves. Now, when we were building our launch template for the auto scaling group that will deploy these, we could build a load balancer at that time. I prefer to do it ahead of time, just how I like to do it. So let's go to EC2. I'm going to duplicate this. Head over to EC2. Okay. Here we have our load balancers, but before we can build our load balancers, we should build our target groups, so we have a place for our listeners to listen. So let's click on target groups. We'll create a target group. It's for an instance. We're going to leave the protocol port 80 because it's a public. It's going to be a public internet-facing application load balancer. So we're still going to leave it on instances here, though. And the reason we're going to be doing that is because it supports load balancing to instances within a specific VPC, which is exactly what we are trying to do. So we need to select our VPC, the week 9 VPC, target group name, we'll call it web tier target group. We're going to leave the protocol on HTTP1. Health checks are going to go to the root. Let's go ahead and hit next. We're going to go ahead and hit next again to create target group. Okay, we have a web tier target group. Let's go ahead and build a load balancer. Okay, so we have none built. Let's create a load balancer. We're going to create an application load balancer. Load balancer name, web tier application load balancer. Scheme is going to be internet facing because we want it to pick up IPv4 traffic, or HTTP traffic rather. Again, we have to select the appropriate VPC, and we're going to select at least 2 availability zones here. Okay, so public web tier for this one. We'll expand this as well. We did public web tier 1, we'll do public web tier 2. Because go back to our diagram, that's where this is going to be getting pushed to, or distributed amongst, I should say. Security groups, we can leave the default security group, but we're also going to add the week 9 web tier security group, because it has our inbound rule that we made. Listeners and routing, okay, so we already made our target group, it's listening on the same protocol, so we're going to select our web tier target group. Is that everything we need? It looks like it. Okay, let's create load balancer. Successfully created. All right, let's view it. Okay, so it's provisioning now. That could take a few minutes to become available, so we'll just pause the video. Okay, so now our load balancer is active. Let's take a quick look at it. Okay, so we got it on our availability zones that we want. We got our listeners listening on port 80 for HTTP traffic. Same as our security group for the web tier. So we're good there. Okay. So, looks like the last thing we need to do for the web tier is to actually build out the EC2 instances. In order to do that, we're going to build an auto-scaling group. But in order to do that, we're going to first build our launch templates. So, let's go over here to launch templates in EC2. Oh, I did this a couple times previously, so we'll go ahead and delete these week 9 templates. Okay. That's better. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a launch template. Okay. The name, we're going to call this web tier launch template. Keep it simple. Yes, provide auto scaling guidance. Absolutely, because we're going to be attaching this to an auto scaling group. Okay, so what kind of machine are we going to want to run for our web servers? Sorry that my computer's being a little slow right now. Okay, so we're going to do an Amazon Linux instance. And we want to stay free tier eligible. We're not going to do the 2023 though. We are going to do the Linux 2, which is also free tier. Okay, so we have an Amazon Linux 2 image, and for instance type, we are going to select a T2 micro. It seems that my web page is frozen here for a second. Did it? It's just acting very slow. Okay. So we're going to select free tier. For key pair, we're going to create a key pair actually, because we don't have one here ready to go. So create new key pair. And to keep it simple, we'll just call it week 9 key pair. Oh, I'm not even typing. All right, hold on. Okay, so we're going to call it week 9 key pair. It's going to be RSA key pair type. I'm on a Windows computer, so it's going to be a .pem file. Create key pair. And we're going to save this in I have a key pairs folder here. We'll go ahead and save that there. For the network settings, we're not going to include a subnet in the launch template because we specify subnet a network interface automatically added to your template. We don't want to do that. Select existing security group. So we're going to select that week 9 web tier security group that we created. And we're going to click on Advanced Network Configuration. Add a network interface. And for our web tier, this is what we want right here. We want to enable auto-assign public IPs. We're going to need public IPs for our web page. And let's see all the ones we have selected. Yeah, that just shows week 9. Week 9 web tier security group. Okay, the advanced details here. These scroll all the way down to the bottom. We're going to enter some user data here. If you recall, back on our project, the web tier, bootstrap a static web page or create a custom AMI that already includes a static web page. So we're going to bootstrap a web page. I've got that already created here from a previous project. So we're just going to go to my bash scripts repository. I got this on my master branch. Okay, user data Apache RPM. That's what we'll use. Got to use the RPM package manager because that's what Linux 2 is, Amazon Linux 2 is. Okay, so here's my simple little script. We'll update the OS and install and enable Apache. Okay, so sudo yum update y, upgrade y, install httpd tech y, then the system controller is going to start it, and then the system controller is going to enable it. At that time, we should be able to hit the Apache landing page by visiting the public IP address that will be assigned to our instances. So let's go ahead and look at this in a raw format. Okay, I'm going to copy that, just paste it right in there. Okay, we're going to create this launch template. Okay, we can view it if we want. Okay, and here it is right here. Perfect. Let's go ahead and review our diagram one more time. Okay, so we made the VPC and the subnets. We made the security group. We made the load balancer, made the route table. Looks like the last thing we need to do is the, and we made the NAT gateway. So it looks like the last thing we need to do is the auto scaling group. Okay. Let's just also go over the project one more time. Make sure that we're not missing anything. 2 public subnets, minimum of two EC2 instances with an OS of your choice, free tier. Web server security group allowing inbound permissions from the internet. Let's review our security group here. Okay, week 9 web tier security group. I'm going to add an inbound rule to allow SSH traffic from my computer because I'm the admin. I'm gonna find out what my IP is. Okay. All right. So let's save this rule. Okay. Let's go to our auto scaling groups. We're going to create an auto scaling group. We're going to call this our web tier autoscaling group. The launch template, we're going to use the web tier launch template that we just created. Hit next. For the VPC, we still have to define it, so we're going to do week 9 VPC. Availability zones, this is the web tier, so we're going to select both of the web tier ones. Instance type requirement is already defined in the launch template. We're going to attach an existing load balancer because we already created one. Choose from one of your target groups, select target groups, web tier, target group. Okay. Health checks, we're going to enable these health checks. Next. Okay, so the group size. This is how many instances do we want throughout the entirety of the autoscaling group, not per subnet assigned to the autoscaling group. So, desired capacity is going to be 4, minimum will be 2, max will be 5. We're going to hit next. Going to skip to review because we're not going to change anything else. Going to come down here and create auto scaling group. Okay. So this is already underway. Gonna go ahead and refresh it. We got 4 instances already being provisioned here. So let's duplicate this. And we'll go to instances. Okay, go ahead and close this GitHub. We don't need it anymore. Okay. I have another instance here running from earlier. Let's go ahead and stop that. Refresh. Okay, it looks like I've got 5 instances running, which is the maximum size of my auto-scaling group. Each one of them has been provisioned a public IP address, which is good. That's what we specified in there. Okay. Let's just go ahead and name each of these web tier 1, just to make it easier for us when we're looking at these later. Web tier 2, and so on. It looks like this key pair test was also one I was running earlier. Let's deselect these others. And we'll stop the instance for key pair test. Refresh. Okay. So, we've got 2 more running that aren't named. Let's go ahead and just name them 3 and 4. Okay. Let's go ahead and go into one of these instances. We'll copy this public IP address, and if all goes well, we should be able to get to the Apache landing page. And look at that. There we are on the Apache landing page. Let's bring up our diagram again. So we have the web tier completely built out. We know that we can reach one of these instances by its public IP address, so we know that it's going through our gateway into our public security group, hitting our elastic load or our application load balancer is what we selected, and then pushing this out. And as you can see in my diagram, that the 4 instances are distributed across 2 subnets. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the app tier, which is right here in the middle. So let's get started. We're going to just do it basically the same exact way that we did the web tier, except we're not going to make them public. Okay. So let's start off with the security group. We're going to create a security group. Week 9 app tier security group. Allows inbound traffic from week 9 web tier security group. Oh, forgot a little dash right there. The VPC, we're going to again select week 9 VPC, inbound rules. So we are going to allow HTTP traffic actually, hold on. Yeah, we're going to allow HTTP traffic from this security group, week 9 web tier security group. So you'll see traffic's going to leave here, go into our private security group, and then hit our next application load balancer. So we got security group selected. We'll go ahead and hit create security group. Okay, so we have inbound traffic defined. Let's go ahead and define our outbound traffic with a private route table. So we're going to create another route table. Private app tier route table. Select it with week 9. And create. Simple as that. Again, we're going to associate a couple subnets. We want our app tier subnets, so that's the 2 that we're going to select. Okay, let's check to make sure that they're there. Yes, they are. Routes, we're going to add a route. So we want to send traffic bound for the internet to the NAT gateway. And hit save. So the reason why we want to give our private subnet some kind of access to the public internet is to allow for updates and patches and things like that. So we have a way out, they don't have a way in. And by they, I mean all the bad actors out there on the public internet. Okay. We have our private security group. We have our private routing table. Let's go ahead and make another load balancer. So before we make a load balancer, we're going to need to make a target group. So let's go back over here, go down to target groups. Okay. And this is going to be the same thing as last time, except the name basically. tier target group. We're going to have the same protocol, HTTP on port 80, select week 9. Keep the health checks there at the root. Next. And then create target group. Okay, excellent. Now let's make another load balancer. Okay, so we're gonna create load balancer. It's gonna be an application load balancer again. App tier elastic load balancer. This one's not going to be internet facing, it's going to be internal. Again, we have to select our VPC. That's a running theme here. Okay, and we have our availability zones, but we want to be specific about which subnets in these. Okay, so that one's already selected for us. Fantastic. And we'll go down here. And this one's set to database. We'll change it back to app. Perfect. Security groups, of course, it goes to the default, but we'll add week 9 app tier security group. The listener, port 80, is going to forward to our app tier target group. Okay, let's create this load balancer. Okay, so that's provisioning. We'll let this go on in provision. It might take a few minutes. So let's go ahead and make our next launch template, the one that we're going to use for the app tier. This was from an earlier dry run I did. Let's go ahead and get rid of that one so it doesn't confuse us. Okay, so we're going to create a launch template. Now this is going to be very similar, but not identical, to our web tier launch template. App tier launch template. Again, we're going to ask for auto scaling guidance because that's what we're going to be utilizing. We're going to select the same OS and the same instance type. And this create launch template page is very slow today. Okay, Amazon Linux 2. Come on. Okay. Instance type is going to be T2 micro again. We're not going to create a new key pair this time. We're just going to use the week 9 key pair that we created. Network settings. We're still not going to associate a subnet here, but we are going to specify the security group we just created. Week 9 app tier security group. Now last time when we were going through here, we went to the advanced network configuration and we added a new interface, and we selected auto-assign public IPs. We're not going to do that this time because this is a private, intended to be on a private subnet, so we're not going to have any public IPs. Additionally, I'm not going to put any user data information down here. I'm not going to put any script to install Apache. I mean, maybe we could at least update it. Update tac y yum upgrade tac y. Okay. Create launch template. Okay, let's give it a quick review. Okay, we got our details and everything. Let's go back to the security group though. Week 9 apt here. Just want to double check this. Okay, so this is allowing for HTTP traffic. I'm going to add a rule. I'm also going to allow all ICMP IPv4 traffic also from the same security group. The reason I'm doing that is because as part of our deliverables, we need to be able to ping the app tier or an instance in the web app tier from an instance in the web tier, and that is ICMP traffic. Okay, very good. Let's consult the diagram. Okay, we got our security group. We got our route table. Do we got our route table? I don't believe we do. Oh, yep, yes we do. And it's already pointing to the NAT gateway. Okay, good. We've been doing good. Okay. Let's go ahead and get this auto-scaling group built. So we'll go down. Oh, let's do it from the EC2 page. It's just a little easier. Do we have a target group ready? Yes, we do. Okay. Load balancers. Already got that. Okay. Ready to roll. Create auto-scaling group. App tier ECG. Launch template is going to be the app tier launch template that we just created. Again, choosing our week 9 VPC. And our availability zones, this time we're going to be selecting the app tier. I'm going to leave the instance requirements as they're defined in the template. Attach an existing load balancer. App tier target group is where we're going to be forwarding it. Okay. Again, we're going to do the health checks. And we're going to do the same capacity for as we did for the web tier. So desired capacity is 4, minimum is 2, max is 5. Hit next, skip to review, and create auto-scaling group. Okay, so it gave us 5 instances. Let's go back to EC2, and we'll go to instances. Let's go and actually filter it by running instances. Oh. I could have sworn that we gave some other of these web tiers, or have named them. Okay, so we'll just do that now. It's going to be a little bit more of a pain, but we'll just have to identify them by the ones that have public IP addresses. Tier 3, save. Okay. And that leaves the rest to be app tiers or instances. Okay. So, let's launch a couple of these. Or not launch, but access them. Duplicate. Duplicate. Okay. It sure is taking its time. Okay, so that page finally loaded. We'll launch Web Tier 1, or not launch, but click into it. And we'll also click into a web tier. Okay, so we're going to want to try to ping this private IP address. And we're going to do that from being SSH'd into the web tier instance. So we'll go to web tier 1, we'll hit connect, we'll go to SSH client, and we'll copy this example down here. And I want to point out that I have the week 9 key pair in my current directory. So I should be able to SSH into this instance if I can get it to copy. There we go. Okay, that's good. It's asking for my fingerprint. Boom. Okay, so quick little recap of what we've done so far. We've got the web tier up. We know because we're at this landing page. Also, I'm SSH'd into a web tier instance. Last thing we gotta do is ping this private IP address if we get a response. That means that we have this set up correctly. So, okay, I'll just type it 10.10.4.20. There we go. And look at that. We are successfully pinging that instance. Okay, excellent. Okay, we're going to leave that there for now. Let's do a quick little recap again. Okay, so we've got our second tier built, our app tier built. It is also in an auto-scaling group behind a load balancer, but we still have communication between our web tier and our app tier, so we know that from the internet gateway down to this load balancer in these instances, we know that our traffic is flowing the way we want it to. Okay, so we've got one more tier to build, and as you can see, it's only a security group. There's not going to be any auto-scaling groups because this is our data tier. We're going to be building out an RDS MySQL database. But first, let's do our security group first. Okay. We'll go down to security groups. This one will be called Week 9 Database Tier Security Group. Allows inbound. Actually, they specified in our project requirements that the database should allow inbound traffic for MySQL from the application server security group. So we have to specify that that is the type of traffic we're accepting here. Where am I? Okay. I'll go ahead and close these two for now. Allows MySQL traffic from Week 9 app tier security group. Select our VPC like we have been. Inbound rules. Inbound type. It's going to be MySQL. You can see it's going to be going over port 1433. The source is going to be our app tier security group. Excellent. Let's go ahead and create this. Okay. Okay, so up until now, we've also been creating a routing table. I left that out on this instance, or on these two subnets in the security group, because an RDS database is not an EC2 instance. RDS is a fully managed relational database, fully managed by AWS. So we're not going to provide a path to an NAT gateway, to an internet gateway, to allow for patches and allow for things like that, because AWS will be taking care of that for us. Okay, so we've got our private security group. Excuse me. We've got our private security group created. Next, we're going to be building our actual database. Now, remember, this read replica in this other subnet is on the diagram only, because we're going to do free tier. We're not going to be able to do that. Okay. We'll duplicate this. And we'll go to RDS. Just check this real quick. Okay, so we're going to create a database. Click on Create Database. I'm going to X out of that because I don't want to see that right now. We're going to use a standard create. We're going to use the MySQL engine because that is what's specified in our instructions. Wait for this drop down to open up. And we'll just leave it on that engine version. We're going to do a single database. Well, if we were going to do a dev environment or a production environment, you could see we'd have the option to do multi-AZ database instance, which would create a standby in a different availability zone, providing high availability and data redundancy. That's all well and good, but we are doing a free tier, which only allows for single DB instances. Database, we'll call it week 9 RDS. Oh, week 9. The credentials will auto-generate a password. We'll leave admin as the username. Okay. So because we're auto-generating a password, we are going to need to copy it down when they show it to us. Oh. Did not mean to select that. Password's auto-generated. We're going to leave the default instance class and the default storage type. We're not connecting any of these resources. We're just making sure that we are in the correct VPC. Okay, we're going to leave that create new DB subnet group on there. For our security group, we're going to do week 9 database tier security group. We'll leave default on there as well. Availability zone, we're going to do US East 1A. We're going to leave all those defaults. Okay, let's create this database. Okay, so I clicked on this View Credentials Details button up here. So this is, hey, get out of here. These are our credentials. This is the only time we're ever going to see them. It's similar to making a token on GitHub. You only get to see it once. So I have off screen a Google Doc open. I'll just go ahead and paste that there. So you're going to want to paste the, or copy the credentials somewhere secure. Okay, we'll close that. Okay. We are still creating the database. You see the status is still in creating even after my little refresh. This can take a while sometimes. It could take like about 15 minutes. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back shortly. Okay, so our database has successfully been created. It's backing up. Before we go any further, while I had the video paused, I realized that this whole time I've been showing you a unfinished diagram. So this is still the same exact environment layout, but it has a watermark of my name across it, and this is the one that is attached to my Medium article. So this is what we will be using for the remainder of this video. Okay, we'll close this out. Let's click on RDS and see what we got. Okay, it's in the availability zone. It's got our security group that we want. Okay. We got some replication, but you can see it's still in our availability zone. So it's happening all right here. It's not going over to this other subnet. Okay. Well, let's look at all of our deliverables and see if we met them. Make sure you can access the web tier from the internet. We got that here. From the web tier, verify you can ping the application tier from the web tier by running the command from an EC2 instance in the web tier. We verified that going here. Well, hold on. Okay. That's not what I expected to see. Connection timed out. Let's go back to the instances. We were in web tier 1 if I recall correctly. What is going on here? Okay, some funny business must have happened, but my auto-scaling group has provisioned new instances for the ones that went offline. So let's verify that these are still working. Copy the public instance, or the public IP address rather. See if we can access the Apache landing page. Yes, we can. Okay, so we're still in business. Well, let's duplicate this. But also, we'll go to connect. And this time, we're going to copy this example. Okay, so that's for a fingerprint again. Okay. We'll select another app tier. We're just doing a quick test again to make sure everything's still up and running the way we want it to be. Those going offline is a good demonstration, though, for this, that the auto-scaling group will pick it back up. Okay, so we'll go to app tier 4, since that one's still clearly labeled. 10.10.3.47. Ping 10.10.3.47. And we're pinging it. Okay, so we know that that the data is still flowing the way we want it to. Okay. Now, let's go back to our project here. And we'll go down to considerations. And here, number 3 says, in order to reach your EC2 instances in the private subnets, you will either need a bastion host in the public subnet or need to use SSM. You will need to research into both to see which works better for your use case. Now, I spent quite a lot of time doing this research on the internet, hours and hours, digging into everything I could find. I really wasn't finding the information I wanted. And lo and behold, it was in the study material provided to me by Level Up in Tech. So we have been using some training notes here, the Neil Davis AWS Developer Training Notes to be precise. So we have our book of notes here. Let's type in Bastion. And we'll click through a few times. Okay, can use a Bastion as a jump host. Let's see what category we're in. And that's NAT instances. It's good to know, but we're not doing NAT instances. We have a NAT gateway. So we'll hit next. Using the NAT gateway as a Bastion host server is not supported. So, because we are using a NAT gateway that is associated with this routing table and pointing towards the internet gateway, that means Bastion hosts are ineligible in this environment. So we're going to be using AWS Systems Manager, SSM. So you can see that we have SSM agent already installed on all of our instances. That is because let's go here real quick. And we'll look up SSM agent. Working with SSM agent. Okay, so we have working with an SSM agent on an EC2 instance for Linux. Go ahead and click on that. Manually installing the SSM agent on EC2 instances for Linux. But you can see in here, Amazon machine images with the agent pre-installed. Let's click on this link. And right up here, we have Amazon Linux 2. So we intentionally selected that operating system because it already has the agent pre-installed. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do we even need this agent? We just proved to ourselves that we can SSH into these instances as we are instructed to, and we can ping these instances from there as we're instructed to. Well, the reason we need to have the SSM, at least for the purpose of our demonstration, is to access our access our private machines. So if we go back, let's duplicate this. Go to security groups. We'll do app tier. You can see we've only got inbound rules for HTTP traffic and ICMP, not SSH. So, even though we selected the week 9 key pair in the launch template for the instances that we attached to the auto scaling group that is using this security group. We don't have the inbound traffic allowed in the security group. But we want to get into these systems anyway. What are we going to do? Let's go to SSM. Well, actually, first, let's go to IAM. So, even though we have the agent pre-installed, we don't have the appropriate instance profile associated with any of the instances in the app tier. So, go ahead and duplicate that. So we're going to create a role that allows us to take advantage of the SSM agent. Okay. Here's our diagram again. And here are our Neil Davis notes again. So since I found that we couldn't have bastion hosts on a NAT gateway in these notes, I decided to look for SSM as well. Okay. Just going through the back of the book, it seems like. Okay. Now, when we're talking about launching EC2 instances, we see right here, you must create or use an existing key pair. This is required if you want to access your instances via SSH. However, you can also attach the Amazon EC2 role for SSM IAM role to your EC2 instance to allow connection to your instance via Systems Manager. Okay, so we're going to do that. So, let's go ahead. Oh, and we'll close that. Let's go to IAM. We'll do that over here. Oh, looks like I don't have it in my recents. Taking just a little while. Okay. So, for an instance profile, we need to create a role, attach permissions to that role, and then that role can be used for an instance profile. So let's go to roles. We're going to create a role. Oh, we'll get rid of that. Of course. Okay. So this is going to be for an AWS service. We're going to select EC2 because that's what we're ultimately going to try to be accessing. We'll hit next. Permissions. Okay, so let's just search for SSM in here. See what we get. Okay, and our notes say we want to look for Amazon EC2 role for SSM. Okay, SSM. Okay. Here it is, Amazon EC2 role for SSM. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at what permissions it provides. So it's allowing us on the Systems Manager itself a lot of permissions here. Allow, describe association, get deployable patch, snapshot for instance. So basically just information on the agent. It also allows us to send messages to the Systems Manager. It allows us to send messages from the EC2 instance. And down here, you can also see that it allows some metrics for CloudWatch, as well as S3 permissions. Okay. But before we attach that, take a look at this. This policy will soon be deprecated. Please use Amazon SSM Managed Instance Core policy to enable AWS Systems Manager. Okay, so we'll look for that one. And here it is, just a few more down. Let's look at the difference. Okay, so we still have all these same SSM permissions. Same for sending messages through the to Systems Manager and from the EC2 instances, but you can see they have omitted the cloud formation and the S3 permission. So this is more just simply directed towards SSM. Okay, let's select it. Okay, we'll hit next. And we'll call this EC2 SSM role for week 9. Okay, we're going to create this role. Okay, keeping the name, creating. Normally this is pretty quick, but I have a slow connection today, it seems. Okay, I'm just going to pause the video and wait for it to complete. Okay, so it completed almost as soon as I hit the pause button. Okay. Role for EC2 SSM role for week 9 is created. Okay, so we have a role that can take advantage of the SSM agent that we have installed on these EC2 instances. Now, our project says that we need SSM in order to reach your EC2 instances in the private subnets. So, we're not going to be trying to go to these publicly available web servers. We're only going to the app tier. We don't even have EC2 instances in the data tier. So we are going to try to access one of these machines here via the Systems Manager. So even though the agent's already installed on there, our instance profile is not installed on these instances. So let's go back and see if we can add it to the launch template. Okay, so we're going to open our app tier launch template. And we're going to modify the template. Okay, so this is just going to bring up our existing template, and then we can make the modifications that we need. Okay, and we'll select that again. Okay. So we're not going to change the instance type. We're not going to change a key pair. Now, when we were building this launch template earlier, we said one of the differences between this launch template and the one for the web tier was that we weren't going to have any user data information, but we just added the stuff to update the system. And that's true. We're not adding a web page, but also in the advanced details, we can associate an IAM instance profile. So let's go ahead and click on this, and EC2 SSM role for week 9, the one we just created, and then we'll hit create template version. View launch templates. Okay, we'll check on versions, and we have 2 versions. Let's go ahead and select version 2 and set as the default version. We're going to select 2 as our default, set as default version. Okay, now that's set as the default. Let's go ahead and look at our auto-scaling groups, and we'll also just look at our instances and see if any of them start to get terminated and then recreated. It doesn't look like any of them went offline. Let's check our auto-scaling group. Okay, it's using the default version, which we just selected for number 2. Okay, well the only way to see it, so let's go ahead and log into one of these. We know it's an app tier because we don't have a public IP address. So we'll click on Actions, we'll click on Security, click on Modify IAM Role. Select an IAM role to attach. So if you choose no IAM role that's currently attached to the instance will be removed. Okay. Well, we want to add it to our launch template, not just to this instance. Let's go back to the auto-scaling group. Select this. Okay, so we do have to select a launch template again in here. We'll do the app tier launch template again, which is on default version 2. Everything else is going to remain the same. Okay. Let's check one of these now. Still no IAM role associated. Okay. That's fine. Well, we'll just rebuild this app tier auto-scaling group, because now that we have the right IAM instance attached. So let's go ahead and delete, and we'll just recreate it. Okay, so that's deleting. Go ahead and make it again. App tier ACG, launch template, app tier launch template. I just want to check our launch template here real quick. Okay, and we have that instance role, or that instance profile. Okay, yeah, so this should be fine to just recreate it. Version 2, yep, that's what we want. In our week 9 VPC, this is for the app tier, so we're going to do the app tier. Leave instance type alone. Attach existing load balancer. Choose app tier target group. Turn on the health checks. Okay. Desired 4, minimum 2, max 5. Skip to review. Okay, so we've got this one deleting, this one being built. Let's take a look at our instances now. Those are all the running ones. Let's see if any just got stopped. Oh, stopped, terminated, terminated, stop, stop, terminated, terminated, stop, stop. Okay. So this is rebuilding it. Go back to running just to limit this clutter a little bit all over the screen. Okay. So we'll select this one because it doesn't have a public IP address, so we know it's in our app tier. Okay, so now let's go over here and we'll go to Systems Manager. Okay, so this is our Systems Manager, and we are going to want to connect to a system. Okay, so in our left-hand menu here, we're going to want to go down to Session Manager, because that's the agent we have installed on our EC2 instances. Okay. Let's start a session here. Reason for session, we'll say no key pair. Target instances. There are no instances associated with the required IAM role. Learn how to create and attach the required IAM role. That might just be saying that because we've only just launched that auto-scaling group that has that instance. Let's refresh this. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video and just come back and check in a few minutes. Okay, so it's been a few minutes, actually more than a few, and it's still not showing up. So we need to do some investigating. Okay. So we know that the agent comes pre-installed on this operating system. That doesn't mean that the agent is running. While the video was paused, I was doing some research, and that's exactly what was suggested, to connect to the instance using your preferred method. Check to see if the agent is running. So in order to be able to connect to the app tier instances via SSH, we're going to need to add that as an inbound rule. Okay, weeknight app tier security group. Okay, so for right now, we'll add a rule to allow SSH from my IP. Okay. Running instance with no public IP, so we know it's part of the app tier. Connect via SSH. Yeah, I didn't think that was going to work. Okay, so yeah, this is the private IP. My Windows machine is not in the VPC. So let's go back and redo this security group one more time. What? Capacity revision? No, we're going to security groups. Okay, so we're going to be bad. We're going to enable SSH to come in from anywhere. That is absolutely not a best practice. We're just doing that right now to see if we could get in, to see if our agent's running. So we'll allow SSH from anywhere. Rules are saved. Actually, that might not have been the best move. We'll edit this again. We'll change SSH from our web tier. You may not specify a reference group ID for the existing CIDR rule. Okay. I don't think it likes that because we've already got that selected, possibly. Okay, so we will leave it to anywhere. Okay, so this is what we're going to do instead. Because the example wants us to SSH into a private IP address, because that's all that's available, we will connect to a public. We're going to SSH back into our web tier, and then from there SSH into our app tier, just to see. Oh, this is terminated. Okay. copy this because it has a public IP address. Yes, okay, we can get into this. Now, we'll go back over and grab the connect information from a private IP address, or from an instance in the app tier. Okay, so no public IP address, so this is in the app tier. Click on connect. Okay, so now we are SSH'd into an instance in our web tier. So, well, EC2 user, okay. Sudo system control status Amazon SSM agent. Oh my goodness. It's active and it's running. But it's still not saying that it's that there's any target instances available. Okay, so it's been even longer, and this is going to make me look silly, but hey, so I went to my role, I didn't attach those permissions that we had specified. So let's go ahead and attach policies. SSS managed instance core. Add permissions. Okay, so now we got some permissions down here. So our role has permissions, and our instance has, that's a public IP. Here's a private IP. And our instance has the role. Our role has the permissions. Let's see if anything updates now. Okay, we'll wait a few more minutes now that we've gone ahead and added those permissions. Give the change a chance to propagate. And okay, just like that. Let's go ahead and click on this we're not going to do any documents, we'll just hit next. Start session. Okay, it's trying. All right, so this built a little shell environment. Okay, I'm in the user bin. Who am I? I'm SSM user. Okay. We can go root if we wanted to. So here we go. This is how we would be able to securely connect to a instance that we had lost the key pair to. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and actually go back to the security groups. And we're going to take away that SSH inbound rule that we add. Save rule. Okay, so we'll terminate this session. Come back here, and we'll start it again. Okay, now you can see we have even more instances running. So we'll select this one, next, next, start session. Okay. 8.8.8.8. I just want to see if this will go through our NAT gateway. And it does. Okay. So, we know that we can connect to this instance using the sessions manager, and we know we've just verified by pinging 8.8.8.8, which is Google public IP address, that our app tier traffic is routing through our NAT gateway as designed. Okay, so this video was nearly 2 hours long, which is much longer than I anticipated it when I first started. So it was a little bit involved, but there you have it. That is how you build out this 3-tier architecture environment for your web applications that we had discussed. Okay, well, I'm going to end this video and get back to the last part of this process, which is tearing everything down. So we're going to tear it all down because some of these services are going to incur a cost. These running EC2 instances, the Elastic Load Balancer, the Elastic IP, the NAT Gateway, those all cost money. So we're going to tear down this entire VPC. I'm not going to do that with you because it'll take too much time. If you lasted all the way to the end of this video, I want to thank you so much for your patience, bearing through with me on my slow internet connection tonight, making it all the way through to the end. I hope you thought it was worth it, and I also hope you had as much fun watching this video as I had making it. Bye-bye.